Welcome to Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. I'm Eric Landrum along with Garth Neufeld, your podcast hosts. As the name implies, we center on conversations about teaching, but we often veer into other interesting topics, which is the end stuff. This is episode number 63, where Garth and I had the opportunity to interview Jennifer Bonds-Raacke from St. Norbert College in Pere, Wisconsin. Now, before you hear the interview, please allow me to share some listening tips and some of my favorite moments. Garth and I want to express our thanks to the Southwestern Psychological Association for providing some space for Psych Sessions to record this podcast. And we want to introduce one of the newest features to Psych Sessions called Ask Psych Sessions. Now, this is going to be a chance to ask a question about the teaching of psychology. This could be a big picture question or a nuts and bolts question. And Garth and I will get someone on the national or international scene to answer it, and we'll post the question and answers as Ask Psych Sessions bonus episodes, probably on Sunday night starting pretty soon. So, and I'm going to spell this out for you, but go to bit.ly/AskPsychSessions to post your questions. So it's bit.ly, and that's all lowercase, /AskPsychSessions, all lowercase. So it's bit.ly/AskPsychSessions to post your questions. And there's going to be just a really short little Google form there. We thought that would be easier than answering your email. Of course, it wasn't that easy for me to spit it out, was it? Now, let's get on to the interview with Jenn. And she was, as if you know her at all, it was an absolutely delightful interview. She's currently the executive director of SWPA, or SWAPA, as I think is what how the acronym is pronounced. And when we got to interview her, she was right in the middle of actually learning about her transition from, she's currently a dean she was at the time a dean at Fort Hays State University in Kansas, and becoming the vice president for academic affairs at St. Norbert College in Wisconsin. And so it's really an exciting time for her and her career and for her family. And so it was fun to get to talk to her about that. We talked about how, she goes to SWAPA, her first year after getting to Fort Hays. And after her first year there, she gets asked to do something big in terms of the Southwestern region. And so you'll enjoy listening for that. We did really get into her backstory and how her college education was really a family affair. And that was just really lovely. It's always great fun to hear the backstories and the origin stories of our guests on Psych Sessions. And so she shared with us the story about not only her brother, who is much younger than her, but also how close her brother is in age to her own daughters, who are, at the time of the interview, they were 16 and 13 years old. She goes to Christian Brothers University in Memphis, which is a Catholic school. That comes into play later on in her own career. And she starts as a psych major, ends as a psych major, which is a fairly unusual in the pattern of interviews that we've had so far on Psych Sessions, although I must admit we have not done a technical analysis of the data. I love the story of how she goes to class on the very first day and the seating arrangement. I'm just going to leave it at that and let you listen for it, because it's a lovely story that actually impacts the rest of her life in a very positive way. So enjoy listening for that. She talks about getting married and going to graduate school, and the dual career challenges that you have when two people are looking for jobs at the same place and sometimes even in the same department. And then we really talked about Jenn's career path and trajectory in terms of leadership, whether it be at Briarcliff University, North Carolina, Pembroke, just the mentoring that she enjoys, those challenges, stretching her skill set. It was just kind of a lovely trajectory from her own development as a teenager into college, into graduate school, into the leadership roles she played at department chair, and then dean, and now as a vice president. And so it was just really fun to, be witness there to her energy and enthusiasm. And you can just see in some people, all right, there's a future provost, there's a future president. And although she's not ready to talk about it right now, I suspect if that's what she wants in her future trajectory, that would happen. And so, again, as usual, it was an awesome interview, and we hope that you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed it. Welcome to another episode of Psych Sessions. We are here at the Southwestern Psychological Association in Albuquerque, and we are thrilled that we have the SWPA Executive Director, Jenn Bonds-Raacke. Is that how you say your last name?
It's Raacke.
Raacke. Okay, I've started wrong already. So
that's not a surprise, Eric.
That's Garth, by the way. We've let him come in to be our technical host.
Oh, thanks.
Jenn, thank you so much for making time for us.
Well, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm excited to be here.
Well, and we are going to keep to your strict timetable because as executive director, you've got places to be, people to meet, and you've got stuff to run, don't you?
We do at 5:30, and it's one of my favorite events because the students and the faculty just have some informal time to mingle.
Can you tell us a little bit about, just for our listeners, the backstory of WPA in general, and maybe your role as executive director of SWPA in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved to Fort Hays State 9 years ago to be chair of the psychology department. And the very first year that I was there, I attended SWPA, and I had never participated in that regional APA affiliate before then, but really enjoyed the conference. It was very welcoming for students, and so that resonated with me right away, and I love that. Then maybe a few weeks later, I got a phone call from Arn, and Arn had been a past president of SWAPA, and he asked me if I would consider running for president. And I was really surprised because I had only been to the conference once, but it sounded like a great thing to do because I really like to jump in and work if I'm going to be somewhere.
Wait, I'm sorry. I am famous for interrupting, and I want you to
love
finish
it. Go
that story
ahead.
in a minute.
Yeah.
So wait, you'd been to SWAPA once,
Correct.
and someone asks you to run for president?
Yes.
So
but that's what I love about SWAPA, right?
Yeah, okay, but and I appreciate that. Is this going to be a theme in your life? You show up and do something once, and you're asked to run things? I got a feeling maybe this is a theme in your life.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
Oh, so I did. I ran, and I was honored to be voted into that position, and I served on the president's cabinet for 3 years. And then I took a year kind of off, and then they asked me to come back in the executive officer role. And so I really enjoy this role. I help provide continuity. You know, we have elected presidents, but they serve in the 3-year terms, and so that knowledge, that institutional memory that they accumulate is gone when the new president comes in. And so I've helped provide that continuity and locate sites and hotels, and I've really enjoyed working with all the faculty and staff.
Now, when I look at the inside of the program, there is a large amount of elected officials, but there's also a large amount of appointed officials too. It's almost balanced out, isn't it? It's almost like 9 and 9. That's a pretty big board.
And you know, that is a new structure, and I'm trying to think maybe only 2 or 3 years old. We used to have a larger amount of elected representatives, and to be honest, I kind of miss that old structure because then when we needed help or when we needed ideas, I felt like we had more people to call upon. So this is newer where we have smaller reps. The thought was at the time, though, that if we have a smaller number of representatives, we could involve them to greater detail and kind of expect a little bit more out of those positions.
Is this the first time that SWAPA has ever been to Albuquerque? Is that true?
The first time in my 9 years.
Okay, because I heard a speaker say this
be.
morning it's the first time ever, and I wasn't sure of that, and I didn't go back and check it anywhere, so I was just curious about that because it seems like an awfully the SWAPA region and the RMPA regions overlap.
Right, we do.
So and we have overlapping members, and
Yes.
actually, if Rick Miller weren't at the Rocky Mountain Psychological Region this weekend, he'd be at SWAPA this weekend.
I always try to get him to move over. He's very loyal, though.
Well, you understand that it's the Rick Miller Psychological Association. That's why it's called RMPA. The current STP president,
good.
by the way. And he'll not know that I said that here because he doesn't listen to the podcast. So,
But he's been a guest on the podcast.
he has been a guest on the podcast. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In terms of I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, please.
In terms of, is this the first time we're in Albuquerque? Just for our listeners who might not know, so the pattern for SWAPA is that we do 2 years within Texas and 1 year outside of Texas.
Oh, okay.
In terms of the health and wealth of the organization, it's better when we're in Texas. That's where our larger numbers are. And so in terms of meeting room blocks and all those fun things with conferences, that works well for us. But we like to go outside of Texas on that third year because, we serve a broad region, and that allows us to go to some of the other people who are in our region, and they're always traveling to Texas. So.
Right.
So in your story, you get elected second year. You get elected to president of SWAPA.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
President-elect.
President-elect,
Yeah.
right. And then so third year, you're going to be president, and then past president. So what did you do before this that put you on people's radar that you could be a good president for SWAPA? What were you bringing in with you? What kind of roles were you bringing into this position?
I know. I wondered that too. Right? Like, was everybody drinking, and my name was the only one
usually.
that came up?
Oh, please. Oh, Jenn, I've known you for longer than that. Okay.
The story that I hear is that some of the faculty members, the more senior faculty members at Fort Hays State, had known members of SWAPA for some time, and they recommended that I might want to be involved with, some of the organizational things, and they were right. I was excited for that.
So I just want to circle back to the notion of 2 years in Texas, 1 year out.
Yeah.
So RMPA, Rocky Mountain Psych, has a very similar. We're not as methodological about it or methodical about it, but so if we stay in Denver, we do quite well. When we go outside of Denver, it's a kind of a crapshoot. We go to Salt Lake City, maybe not so good. And we actually do come to Albuquerque. We've been at Hotel Albuquerque before. We'll be here 2 years from now. We will rotate here. If we go to Boise, it's a bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
In fact, 1 year we were a little bit under, and I actually wrote a check to make it be zero. I got sick and tired of seeing that negative number on the balance sheet every time they showed the cities and the net loss or gain.
Oh, you felt a personal responsibility because it was Boise.
It was my town.
You're right. You should have done a better job.
Now, the next time we were in Boise, the negative was too large. I couldn't afford to write the check, so I don't know if we'll be there again. But I hear you on the room blocks, and I think the typical conference goer has no idea about the room blocks or the food purchase or the buy. It's a big deal, and if you don't make that buy, bad things can happen.
Well, and this is interesting.
And you're a conference organizer as well, so
right?
You get
And
this.
we cover the the Northwest, and when our steering committee talks about upcoming conferences, we always wonder, should we move it out of Seattle? But you introduce all kinds of risk. You also introduce all kinds of reward. But maybe I'll just ask you, why is it worth it? Why not just keep it in Texas? Why is it worth moving it around the region when it's more challenging, I guess, would be my question.
So I'll give you one example. When I was president, it was the year to be out of Texas. And so we were following a model at the time before we had the executive officer position where the president got to select the location if it was outside of Texas, and then the hotel no matter where we were in or outside. So there I was year 3 or whatever it was, and I was picking a destination outside of Texas. And in the past, there had been mixed success outside of Texas. And like you say, it really can hurt in terms of numbers, that bottom line. And so to get back to your question, we had it in Wichita, certainly a risk when they had been in Kansas City before. They had lost money on the event. But, some of the things that we did were really reach out to our colleagues in Kansas and surrounding states that didn't normally participate in SWAPA. And so they came to the event. It might have been the first time they were there ever, or maybe the first time that they had been there in a long time. And what anecdotally we did see happen is that some of the graduate students who presented that year in Wichita became faculty members in the SWAPA region. And they were so impressed because it had been a while and they didn't realize that it really has a professional atmosphere to it. And so we were able to recruit them as professional members.
Oh, that is awesome. So Jenn, would you like to go forwards or backwards? I'm gonna let it be dealer's choice. Would you like to go forwards as to what a new challenge is coming up for you, or do you want to go backwards and tell our listeners a little bit about your backstory?
Let's go backwards first.
So was it, or Was it always ordained for you to go to college? Did you grow up in a household where mom and dad went to college? We oftentimes get into the backstories, and it's really funny how there's people that I've known for 20 years, but when we get them on the podcast, when you go to a conference and see somebody, even if you go out to dinner, no one really stops and talks about their parents or how they went to college, and these stories end up being fascinating. So if you wouldn't mind just telling a little bit about your story.
No pressure on your fascinating story.
Oh,
right.
Well, yeah, you're right. Okay.
But I can't wait for it. It's going to be amazing.
Sorry.
I'll try to come up with some good
I'm
intrigue
sure.
with my backstory.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just whatever it is fine. Was the question in your house, will you go to college, or was the question, what college will you go to? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Mississippi, northern Mississippi, right by Memphis, Tennessee. My parents did not have college degrees, and so it was really important to them that I did well academically, and they always wanted me to have a better life than what they felt like they provided for me. Although I thought I had a wonderful life.
Right.
But as a parent now, I understand that, right? I want my daughters to have a better life than I have. So I also want to mention that my grandparents played a significant role in my education, and it was really a family effort. So in high school, I went to Immaculate Conception in Memphis, Tennessee, and my grandfather would drive me every day from Mississippi to Memphis, Tennessee, take me to school, and then at the end of the day, he would pick me up and bring me back home. And when I finally could drive, he provided me with a vehicle and taught me how to drive. And so it really felt like the whole family was cheering me on. When I went to college, as I mentioned, my parents did not have a college degree. My mom had a few night classes. And probably the spring of my freshman year, she decided to go back and get her RN. And so we were in college together, and that was fun. But I will tell you, I vividly remember, so when I was a senior in high school and I went to register for classes for the fall, I met with the faculty member and I called her Mrs. And I learned really quickly that I didn't know how to navigate higher education, right? Because she was instantly offended, and I thought I was showing respect. I wanted to make sure that she knew how much I appreciated her time, and she really took it as an insult. And so I really enjoy working with first-generation students because I remember what it was like to not know.
But you weren't being disrespectful.
Not at all.
You didn't know to call her doctor.
No,
calling her
I
Mrs.
didn't.
was respectful.
It was. My parents had always said, keep in mind, too, I was from the South, that it's Miss, Mrs., and Mr. And so I was using that definitely to show respect.
So your parents obviously gave some thought to your next steps in education, or to you having a good education. What made that a value for them if they never went to college? Why did they know that was a good next step for their kid?
My dad frequently said that he didn't want me to have to work as hard as he did. And so I think I have worked as hard, but maybe just in a different way. And he always said, I want you to love what you do. He would say, not that I'm saying I don't love what I do, but I really want you to love it and to feel like you had a choice in what you were doing. And so, gosh, I'm glad that was important to him.
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
So I do. I have a 22-year-old brother. He was born my senior year of high school, and so we really didn't overlap in the house at all. He kind of feels like one of my own. So, my oldest daughter is 16, and I have a 13-year-old too. But so the 16-year-old and then a 22-year-old brother, right? Sometimes they interact like siblings.
Right. So there wasn't even an older sibling that went to college before you.
Right.
To model that you could model after. You were you first gen, firstborn, first to go to college.
Were people from your? Did you grow up in a town? What was the town? The name of the city, town?
The South Haven, Horn Lake, Mississippi area.
Okay. And were people around there going to college?
Well, not where I was living, not really. No, I lived in government housing from about the time I was 8 or 10 years old until I graduated high school, and so it was very blue collar.
But what a lovely success story. I mean that the notion of parents. I mean, you nailed it. The idea of parents wanting better for the next generation. I mean, and actually I love it. It's a 2-generation success story, really, that the grandparents got in on the act. Parents made it, I want you to have this. I think as parents, we're all parents. We all want that. We want our kids to have a better life than we had, and they were willing to sacrifice for it. And I think it's lovely. It's touching. It's what we all aspire to.
Yeah. Yeah.
We really do.
Did you start as a psych major?
I did, yeah, and I never switched my major.
So where'd you go?
Christian Brothers University in Memphis.
Christian Brothers.
And I didn't do the typical tour of colleges. Didn't know that was even a thing,
It was
right?
close.
My mom had just had my brother, and I knew I didn't want to go away. I wanted to be near him and be a part of watching him grow up. And so I had gone to Catholic school my entire life, and Christian Brothers was right there, so I applied and started.
So you lived at home?
I lived on my own, so I got an apartment
Okay.
the summer going into my freshman year of college, and so I lived close to family, but
Okay.
I was independent.
So
Pretty
not
early on.
in the dorms, but
Not in a dorm,
So at
no.
least you had your own place. So you
Yes.
had that independent experience.
Yeah.
Lived close to home, but not on campus.
No. Looking back, I kind of regret that. So my oldest daughter, Callie, has been doing the dept summer programs.
Okay.
And so she's gone to LSU and a variety of other places in the summer. And she's really enjoyed that dorm experience and feels connected and bonded with her peers in a way that I don't think I had as an undergrad.
Did you work while you were going to school, or were you just locked in your apartment studying all the time? What were you doing?
Well, I even had to work, not had to, but I contributed to help pay for the tuition of the private school by serving as a waitress and a hostess. And they were teasing me last night, even at the swap at dinner. They were short-staffed here. And so I started helping deliver the fajitas. I had worked at a Mexican restaurant for so many years. Of course, you got to jump in and help.
Can we? I just want to roll the timer back just a year or two. Jenn, you are so effervescent and so energetic. Can we roll back to high school a little bit? Were you like in band or choir or anything like that? Didn't play an instrument?
No,
Weren't
nothing.
involved in any activities, debate, drama?
I
No?
wasn't because I worked.
You worked.
You know?
Okay, very good. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
held multiple jobs, and
Was there a psychology class offered at your high school?
I did. I took a AP credit course and loved it. Didn't know what I would do with it, but there was just something about the content that was really motivating.
So when you went to Christian Brothers, you started as a psych major, you ended as a psych major.
I did, yeah.
And you're thinking, what are you going to do what are you going to do for a career at that point?
I don't know. And so that's so weird to say that I don't know, because I feel like I'm a very driven, organized person that would have thought about the future, but I didn't those first few years, right? I just knew I wanted to take those courses, and every psych course I took, I loved it.
But you were only 18.
Right.
You got to give yourself a break. How would you think you would know that? No 18-year-old I ever encounter right these days knows that.
And let's tease John, my husband, the next time you guys see him, because while I stayed with psychology, he switched majors 5 or 6 times. And so collectively, as a couple, we probably meet the national average for switching your major.
I switched 3 times.
Yeah.
I switched once.
Yeah.
And that was because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he became a psych major, did he?
He did,
Okay.
yeah.
Eventually you landed there.
So 4 years, you go through, I guess I have to ask, did you join Psych High?
I did, yes.
You did? Were you chapter president?
I was.
All
yeah.
Very nicely done. Psych High presidents here.
For those who
Yeah.
can't see, there's a high five
Yeah.
going.
There was a high five here for Psych High chapter presidents, absolutely. And so you get done with Christian Brothers, you get your bachelor's degree in psychology, and are you applying to graduate schools your senior year?
I did. And at the time, there was a faculty member in my department who was from Kansas, and she had earned her PhD from Kansas State University. And so she suggested that I applied there. This time, unlike when I applied to undergrad schools, I understood now that I had to apply wide, right? And so I put in probably about 10 applications. Okay. And then John and I together went on the campus tour of the different places I had applied.
Okay, so now we have a new character in this story. So when does John come into the picture?
So John and I met my very first class my freshman year. And
oh my gosh.
Not surprising to Eric, I arrived at class probably an hour early, picked out the seat that I wanted, had my notebook and pens organized. John was a sophomore, and he came in 10 or 15 minutes early and sat right beside me. So the room is empty besides me.
Big room.
Yeah, and he sits right beside me.
It's a good move. It's a good move.
Right?
Well, it's a good move in retrospect, but do you remember the day? Weren't you a little bit perturbed? And I hope I can
don't
say
think
this.
so.
Or was he such a good-looking guy?
Yeah.
It was like, all right.
I don't think I had either one of those thoughts.
Okay.
You know, I was just so excited about the class. I didn't find it odd, right? Maybe you always sit next to someone. I don't know. I'd never been to college.
That's
Nobody
true.
talked about it.
But if that had happened in high school, what do you think your reaction would have been?
Oh, there were no boys in my high school, so that would have really been a surprise.
So you went to a Catholic high school, but it was all girls.
It was all girls, yes. Yeah.
So this is an epiphany. I mean, literally an epiphany. For
Right, there was a
you.
boy in the classroom.
There was a boy in the classroom, and he's sitting right next to you.
Yes.
Not even a seat in between.
No, right beside me. And we've been trying to come up with a new story to tell our girls. But anyways, they know this one, so I can say it in public. We moved in together about a month later, and this July we'll have been married 20 years. So now that I look back and I know all the research on cohabitating and things like that, like who would have known that we moved in together September of my freshman year, and here we are so many years later, right?
So I'm going to approach and hopefully not cross the line of asking too much information.
Sure.
And we can edit these. This is
Okay.
perfect.
Oh, this is my
You're
favorite
good.
moment. Here we go.
Okay. So was John the first person you ever dated?
No.
Okay. So you had dated before. It wasn't okay, gotcha.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going a different route. I thought you were going Catholic school, Catholic university. I thought you were going is that the culturally appropriate? How did the family feel about all this?
No. Just if you've been strictly Catholic, all girls school, and maybe I don't know if mom and dad are monitoring everything. You might not have had access to boys or had access enough to start dating them. Day one of college, a boy
Right.
comes in and sits down next to you. Is this the first boy you've ever been that close to?
I bet she talked to a boy, though, before that.
Talked to is one thing, then dated. Okay,
I love it. I'm going to let you guys think I had never talked to a boy before.
Well,
Great. Let's go with
okay,
that.
Small town. All right, you got me. Yeah. All right.
No, I'm definitely.
I
in my
deserve
head,
this.
There's stereotypes, right? That
Sure.
are going on for certainly.
Right, and
I didn't go to an all girls school. I would have liked that, I think, but I didn't go to.
Well,
an
you
all
have the
boys.
hair for it. I mean, certainly.
Thank
when you put the bun down, you have the hair for it.
Get by. I get by.
We're going to edit that part out too. The editing comes in handy.
You're right, it does.
It really does. So all right. So John enters senior year, and so when you guys, and so you're solidly a couple by the time you're done at CBU.
Yes, we are. Right, we're married. We married going into our senior year of college. Yes. We had lived together for 3 years and then got married that summer.
Married in college. Wow. I'm sorry. I have to process that.
Well, I'll jump in because then you guys are touring around for graduate school. You're checking out a bunch of different graduate schools together. Is this a package deal? Like you're going to try to get somewhere?
Well, no.
Get into the same program?
John had a professional career at Kinko's, and he was working at the Kinko's FedEx Center, so you couldn't walk in off the street. It was, one of the places where they did big projects for companies, right? And he had moved up to a management level position, and he was doing that during the day and going to school at night. So he just assumed wherever I got into graduate school, he would work at Kinko's because they're everywhere, or they were at the time.
They were.
And instantly when we went to K-State, though, we felt at home. Like, we loved it there. Now, I had never been away from home before. John had. He's from the New Orleans area, so he moved away to college. But I think it was such a great opportunity for us even to travel to Kansas to visit because I was growing as a person, and I'm glad he was there to be part of that with me. So we fell in love with Manhattan and the school, and then fortunately I was accepted. And so we moved out there together, right, because we... We're a couple and married. I wouldn't leave him behind. Yeah. And then he was working at Kinko's, and my major professor, Dr. Richard Harris, got to know us both, and he kind of asked John, why didn't you apply to graduate school? Because John was an excellent student as well, and so he encouraged John to do so. And so John started K-State as a non-degree seeking student, taking courses and earning his way in. So I know he frequently tells students, I got into graduate school, not the easy way, right? Because I had to work to earn that spot, but he made it harder on himself.
What I would call the back door.
Yes.
You got in through the front door.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Was it what was the program that you went into?
Experimental cognitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so do you both graduate at the same time?
No, we didn't. So I finished in, okay, you're testing my memory here.
That's
I don't
okay.
know, like
Doesn't
the
matter.
summer of, 2004? Okay, maybe I
sorry?
shouldn't have given the year.
No,
I don't
no,
know.
I just
That's
did the
when I
math.
finished too.
I know.
Oh, okay, you guys can both.
When did you finish, Eric? It wasn't 2004?
I got my PhD in 1989.
That's close. Yeah.
Okay, for the listeners at home, they can both bite me, all right? We're going to play the home game. They both got certain types of grins on their face.
So did you set out to find an experimental program? Is that what you were aiming for?
No, I think like most students, right, I was interested in clinical, and then I'm not a good test taker. And so when I took the GRE, it became very clear to me that I was not going to get into those competitive clinical programs. And so I started thinking about what classes had I enjoyed the most. And I had wonderful faculty at CBU that really helped me evaluate the situation and apply to programs where I could be successful.
So Fort Hayes, is that your first job post-PhD?
It's not. So first, when I finished, John was not finished with his degree at the time. And so...
Gotta wait around for him.
Always holding me back.
No kidding. We've got that on tape.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, we've got that.
So I taught at Briarcliff University, and John
okay.
moved with me. And it was great because it was just... for Midwesterners, just a few hours away, 6 or 7 hours from Manhattan, so he could still go back and finish things up. And so within a year, he finished. And so we were at Briarcliff for 2 years. We both were in the psychology department. We were 2 of the 3 faculty. And there were probably, maybe 25 psychology majors at the institution at the time. And then we moved to North Carolina, so we both got tenure track jobs at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, and we were there for 4 years. The last 2 years, I moved into the Associate Dean's role of the Honors College and loved that. You look like you're not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised, and I'm having my aha moment. Okay. All right.
You're analyzing me.
Yes. I am and I'm not. Jenn, I know you, but I don't know you super well. But I know, I think I know your skill set. I think I know your potential. And it's fun to hear where someone else noticed it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. You're talking about her low conscientiousness score, right?
No, I'm talking about her amazing leadership and ability to organize and inspire is what I'm really talking about.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
So UNC.
Yeah, UNCP. Loved the students there. It was a majority-minority institution, and that really resonated with me, right? Because these students were also navigating college alone many times, and so I really liked that. But I loved administration, and the provost there at the time was pretty candid with me, and he said, if you really want to go further in administration, you need to be a chair, you need to be a line supervisor. And so I started looking for opportunities, and the first job announcement that I found was for chair at Fort Hayes. I had not remembered Fort Hayes from when we were in Manhattan, right? Because that's Western Kansas, and in Eastern Kansas, you don't even know Western Kansas exists. And so I applied there. I applied to 2 jobs, and so that was one of the jobs that I applied to and got the position.
And John got a position there also?
Right, so he started off as a temporary faculty member, so a 1-year contract, kind of took a leap of faith and moved out there. And then within a year, he moved into the chair of criminal justice role.
Wow. Because the UNCP, to get 2 tenure-track faculty jobs in the same department is pretty rare.
Absolutely.
That is very fortunate. And then to be able to move and get 2 jobs at a new place continues to be rarer. That is very fortunate if you follow the trends in higher ed. And so that is pretty awesome.
And you were hired into the chair position?
I was,
there?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And how was that? And that's where you have been for a long time up till now.
Right. I loved being chair. I was chair for 7 years. had worked with great faculty, and let me brag on them a little bit. So we moved some of our programs online. We really wanted to be able to serve the citizens of Western Kansas, so we put a graduate school psychology program online. The state desperately needed additional school psychs. So we did some really creative things. We had a 300% enrollment growth from, when I started to the last year, and I don't know, just great things happening there.
Those are McKeechee numbers, aren't they? That kind of growth?
They might be better than McKeechee numbers, actually.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. That's cool.
Yeah. So you did. So you went from chair, and then didn't you do not what's coming, but weren't you an associate dean, or help me remember?
Right. So I'm dean right now of the graduate school and the Office of Scholarship and Sponsored Projects at Fort Hays.
That sounds like 2 jobs.
It is. Yeah. I get paid for one, but it's definitely 2 jobs.
Okay. All right. And how long have you been doing that?
So this May will be 2 years, so not long.
Okay. But are we ready to talk about that you're giving that up? Can we mention that?
We can talk about that. And you're kind of making me nervous about it because John and I are taking another jump, right?
Only if you want to talk about it.
Well, before we get there, let's just hold everybody in suspense for a minute, because
okay.
I watch administrators at my college, and I wonder how they do it. Honestly, it sounds like a nightmare to me to watch all of the. I mean, and like you said, you're doing 2 jobs, really, which means you're probably putting in a lot of hours. How do you How do you manage life, work balance? What are your rules? What's the wisdom on that?
I have a really supportive husband. So John is the primary caregiver for our daughters, and so that provides me with the flexibility to be able to do things in my career and move up. And I wish that academia was structured differently so that I had a healthier balance, but it's not, and so that's just our reality.
I'm not sure I believe that. How old are your daughters?
16 and 13.
But you might say he's the primary caregiver, meaning that maybe he spends more clock time with them. I cannot sit here and believe that you don't spend quality time with them.
I certainly do. I mean, you're right.
Yeah, I don't think your DNA is built that way.
But I'm not the one dropping them off at school or picking them up or packing lunches, or if somebody has to notify a teacher. I'm not even sure all teachers knew I was the mom, right? Because John just does that so well that I didn't have to do those things.
So what time are you in the office? On a daily basis.
So I love the mornings. I'm a morning person. I will get up at 4:45. I do a 5:30 workout class. I have a fun group of girls that I work out with, so I'll work out from 5:30 to 6:30. Get dressed and head into the office. I don't feel the need to be there before the university opens. If I am, that's great. If it's right at 8 o'clock, that's okay too. Our university operates till 4:30. I don't take a lunch break. I should, but I get engaged and busy, and I don't know, I don't want to stop. And then I go home and I get to visit with the kids a little bit if they're there. They might not be there because now they have their own activities going on. And so if we have a minute, I'll do a proud mom brag about what they're each up to. And so, then you pull out your computer and you work in the evenings too.
But Jenn, you strike me as being genuinely happy. I'm being serious. You have a glow about you. You're happy. I think you have a good work-life balance. It works for you.
It does work for me, yes. Yeah. And if I'm not working, I'm not happy, and everybody in the family knows it. So they'll say, "Mom, why don't you go to work?"
Well, and I say this around my wife, and I'm not ever teasing about it. If mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. Right. And I don't mean that in a sexist way. I don't mean that in a gendered way. But if she's not happy, the family's not happy, and I want my wife to be happy. So I can appreciate that. So tell us about what is the next challenge for you?
Okay, so as I mentioned, I've been in the dean role for almost 2 years. I decided to
That it wasn't challenging enough.
Well, I didn't say that. There's always something to do, right?
Okay.
But I really, as an administrator, like to be innovative. I really think that we're entering into new times in higher education, and we're going to have to think differently about the way we do things.
I think you're right.
So George Mahaffey at Askew just gave his farewell speech this summer as he's transitioning out of that role. And he talked about how right now universities are really designed for faculty, right? That's the way that they evolved over time. And he thinks to continue to be successful, we're going to have to design the institutions for students. And so I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to help design things to continue to make students successful and to do so in a way that faculty are excited about. Because I do think people get into the profession because they want to help students succeed. And so let's empower the faculty to come up with what that might look like.
Well, that's interesting. Sometimes there's a bit of hostility between administrators and faculty. But how do you get faculty to get excited? Because I think it's probably challenging.
I haven't found it to be that challenging. You know what I mean? I normally listen to some of the things that the faculty want to do and then clear those roadblocks so that they can do them. That's what I like to do.
But I don't think you've really talked about what you're going to do next.
Okay, no, I haven't. So I did put out a few applications and thought, well, maybe I want to consider being a chief academic officer. I had completed Askew's Becoming a Provost Academy in 2012. I loved doing that when I was a chair because it was my opportunity to see how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. So instead of being in my own silo, I gained a really great appreciation for the fact that the university has to work together as a whole. And I love interdisciplinary work, thinking back to my years in honors programs and things like that. So you can see why I enjoy the role of the graduate dean and would be thinking about, okay, what might be next. So as Eric knows, just a few days ago, I accepted the position of Vice President of Academic Affairs at St. Norbert College.
At St. Norbert College. So does that not come with the title provost?
It does not.
But that is essentially a provost.
It is, yes.
Okay. So you're moving the family.
Well...
Oh, or maybe you're not.
I don't know.
Oh,
and so let me say why I don't know.
I apologize.
How
we can
fun
edit
is
that
this?
part out.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I think it's important for people listening to know that paths from A to B aren't always easy, right? It's not a direct path.
Right,
There's lots of winding roads. So I just found out, or we wrapped up negotiations on Monday. Today's Friday, so it's still really new.
Right.
And John and I have been here both working and doing things and haven't really had a chance to talk. But here's what we've maybe come up with. I will move, I'm going to start this summer, so I need to be there the beginning of June. Our oldest daughter, Callie, was accepted into the Kansas Academy of Mathematics and Science, so she'll start early college. So what we do kind of doesn't impact her because she is very goal-oriented and she has a plan and she's ready to go.
I wonder where that apple falls from the tree. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then I'm not sure what John and my youngest daughter will do. So my youngest daughter, Brooke, seems really excited to be up in Wisconsin with me. It's in the Green Bay area. She is a dancer, a very gifted dancer. She actually had her first professional role, like she was cast in a part in Kansas City just a few weeks ago. And so she's excited about what a bigger community would mean for her in terms of her dance career. She's ready to go now. But as you guys know, dual career couples are hard,
right?
And we're not exactly sure how that is going to pan out. So we might live apart for a little while, but we'll make it work.
So first off, I think there might be a job opening in Green Bay, and there might be a house in Green Bay that's available that's really nice. I've been there many times, and so we should talk once this recording is done. I can put you in contact with somebody. So that's an exciting opportunity for you, Jenn. And I know we're coming up on the time that we don't want to keep you so that you can take care of your duties. But and I don't want to look too far into the future in the crystal ball, but don't you think it would be cool to be a college president someday?
I don't know. And this is a characteristic of myself that I find frustrating. I don't feel like I'm always great at thinking about what do I really want in the end. I'm just one of those individuals that works really hard to make sure I'm doing what I'm doing right now well. I never want to do a disservice to students or faculty. Right. And then I don't know, if something comes up, great, but if it doesn't, I'm doing what I love, and that's good too.
But was part of the itch to change that you felt the need to stretch your skill set?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love to be creative, and I wanted to be able to do that more. And
so maybe after you've conquered St. Norbert and a Catholic school, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're going to kind of return to your roots?
I
Because
am.
Fort Hays doesn't have any religious affiliation, does it?
No, it does
No.
not. No, public access.
So
Yeah.
you're going to kind of return to your roots a little bit, and so you're going to go there and you're going to conquer the world, and then it's going to be what's the next place I get to stretch my skills?
Maybe. We're going to take it one day at a time and find a place to live first.
Well, the good news is that likely by the time this episode comes out in 8 weeks or 10 weeks or something like that,
Right.
you probably have it all figured out, I'm sure, right at that point in
Right?
time. So
Plenty of time.
it's been such a pleasure to get to know you. Thanks for sitting down with us. And
We know the conference season is really busy, but I have discovered that the busiest people get the most done, and they find ways to get it done, whether it's podcasting or hosting conferences or being conference leaders or whatever they're doing. Jenn, thanks so much for all that you do, not for this, but for SWAPA, for what you do in the discipline. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure. This was fun.